So should the weekly showdown at the House of Commons be ramped up or indeed toned down? Joining me live from Westminster to discuss that are Harry Lambert, the editor of the election prediction site May2015.com, and Stephen Bush, the editor of The Staggers, that's the new Statesman's politics blog. Very good afternoon to you both. Well, Stephen, are you on effectively on John Bercow's side?
Yes, very much so. I think the thing you really notice whenever you, say, visit a marginal seat or talk to any of your friends who perhaps aren't into politics, the first thing they'll say is, what's this horrible spectacle every week where two middle-class men shout at each other for 15 minutes with lots of heat and very little light?
Well, I mean, I'm going to stay with you, Stephen, because I'm hearing that we can see Harry, but he can't hear us, so we'll get his view in a moment or two. But, Stephen, there are those that say, well, if you make it too polite and gentlemanly, then no one will actually watch it.
I mean, the thing is, if we're going to talk about people watching it, why is it on in the middle of the day when, for the most part, only people who live and work in the bubble can watch it? I mean, if we were putting on in the evenings, perhaps that would be a better argument. But the thing is, when ordinary people watch it, they might see it, but they go, oh, this is awful. And then they become disillusioned with electoral politics and turn towards not voting the Greens or UKIP. OK, well, I'm glad to say, thanks for that, Stephen. I'm glad to say Harry Lambert is in full contact with us. So, Harry, what's your view? You think they should turn up the volume?
Absolutely. I think the real thing here is we don't know what the public think about PMQs. People say that we think it's too shouty, but the data we have isn't very clear. I think that it serves two really important functions. The first is, we mustn't forget PMQs is TV. Think about the TV shows of the last decade, The X Factor, Dragon's Den. These shows were made interesting because judges challenged contestants. In the same way, we need a leader of the opposition who will challenge the Prime Minister. The second thing is, it performs a really important function. You know, everything we know about the leaders comes from the insights we get by watching them in PMQs. Can they think quickly? Can they survive under fire? Do they hold the support of their party? You know, it's very hard for us as voters to get a good sense of how the PM will perform, or the leader of the opposition will perform if he were PM. PMQs gives us that opportunity to find out. OK, well, I'm going to ask you in a moment or two whether you think we could go a bit further then to get that so-called X factor into it. But Stephen Bush, on that, you know, I'm that kind of person, and I'm sure you are, who I've watched other debates, and they're very erudite debates and very well-informed debates in the House of Commons, some of them going on into the wee small hours because that's my job. But I bet nobody watches those.
No, you're probably right. The flip side of that is those debates contribute towards the country being governed better. You know, ministerial careers do actually rise and fall occasionally based on questions asked in the chamber. Whereas, does PMQs achieve that function? I don't think so. William Hague beat Tony Blair every week for 4 years, lost in a landslide. Ed Miliband had a rare victory today in the chamber, but he mostly gets turned over by David Cameron. He's probably going to be the next Prime Minister.
But it provides, and that's the thing, as Harry Lambert is saying, just on that, Stephen, I mean, it does provide that, I mean, it's the dreaded phrase, isn't it? But it provides the sound bites that then appear later in the evening for those news bulletins that a lot of people do watch.
Well, just on that, Dermot, I think that's absolutely true, but it provides more than that. You know, so much of politics is scripted and is plastic, and we're not even probably going to get the leaders' debates. PMQs provides the one opportunity for us to see what David Cameron thinks about things like second jobs for MPs, or even if we go back a few weeks, to see how Ed Miliband reacted when the Scottish polls were looking so bad for his party. So I think it performs a really important function. And just on your point about the erudite debates that do happen elsewhere in Parliament, well, you're absolutely right. You know, we have an alternative to PMQs, and it's called the Liaison Committee. It meets once every few months. The PM is quizzed by select committee members, and no one watches it. It's interesting, but it doesn't engage people. PMQs does, and we should keep it.
Stephen Bush, respond to that.
I don't think that the number one test of whether or not something is functioning in a democracy is whether or not people watch it on TV and cheer it. We've got wrestling or football for that. Yeah, I'll have a better time watching Arsenal this evening than I had watching the Prime Minister and Ed Miliband. Hopefully I'll have a better time watching Arsenal this evening. But, you know, the point of PMQs is, one, does it hold the executive to account? No, it doesn't. They just shout sound bites, and at the end the government continues on as it does. Two, does it inspire faith in the democratic process? No, it doesn't. People watch it and conclude they're all the same. And 3, is it particularly visually interesting television? No, the cameras still aren't allowed to move around. It's the least visually arresting thing you'll watch all week.
All very good points, and I bet Harry Lambert's going to counter that by saying, well, all that should be allowed, and wrestling too, maybe, Harry.
Well, the funny thing is that the Hansard Society did a report on PMQs, and it's been quoted a lot today. But one of the things it said is that the voters actually want to introduce a sin bin system, where if members are too rowdy, they'll be thrown out of the chamber. So I'm not sure we want a less confrontational system. I think the basic point here is that by making PMQs more boring, it's not going to be more revelatory, and it's not going to engage people more in the political process. You know, I think we could improve PMQs. I think we could put it on prime time, maybe. We could make it longer. We could give the Leader of the Opposition more questions to ask. We could have a system where backbenchers could contribute questions and then they could vote on the ones they think are most important. So I think we can improve PMQs, but we certainly shouldn't be toning it down.
OK, I bet you could bite on some of that, couldn't you, Stephen Bush? Don't you think some of those proposals are reasonable?
I think a sin bin is a brilliant idea, although I think the fact people want one suggests they want it to be less rowdy. Mostly when people want the referee to show a card, it's because they want the player to stop acting around, not because they want to see more leg-crunching tackles.
Which hopefully you don't want to see at the Emirates tonight. Got to end it there. Stephen Bush, thank you very much indeed from the Staggers. Harry Lambert there from May2015.com.